Hello and welcome to another episode of Campaign Diaries. I am Fen the GM, and this is episode 3, talking about our third session of Dungeons and Dragons in 5th edition. Previously, the heroes were stuck in some caves as gladiators for the owners of this grotto's entertainment, for bringing in new clients, as a reason for smugglers to stop off. They had slaves fight in their gladiatorial arena. And the heroes escaped. They rallied all of the slaves. They fought their way to freedom. They used a combination of charisma, stealth, brute force. And they escaped. They took over the grotto. And there were some tensions last time, and they thought maybe they were going to have to fight the orcs. Bromdeer was really questioning whether the orcs were going to make it out alive. So coming into this session, they wanted to kind of finish up exploring, and then figure out what they were going to do about all these other factions that were now wandering loose. Today's background is brought to you by Reality. I decided not to put the green screen up today, so again, we're just kind of seeing what sticks. Also trying something new with audio, so let me know if you hear any difference, if you think it's nice, if it's weird, whatever, let me know. Clicks couldn't make this session, which meant he was played in combat by Brav, who I was kind of thinking that Cal would end up playing Clix's character in combat, but he felt like Brav had more of a grasp on the rules, so that's kind of where Grispy went. It didn't really come into play. They'd done most of the fighting in the grotto last session. There was one thing that was planned that I forgot about, and then they only had one encounter in this session. So at the end of the last session, they took a short rest, used some hit dice, healed up a little bit after their fight with Drusus and the wife of Gladwin Grieger, whose name I can't remember for the life of me. And they decided to explore more of the grotto. I described as they left the shop where they had kind of made their mini camp, how they saw at the end of the corridor escaping from the grotto, or leading to an overland exit at least, where the orcs were kind of gathering up and preparing to move out. So they did a bit of exploring. They explored some of the rooms inside, saw, just kind of got a glimpse of who was living there, what might be there. They found a spell scroll. They found some gems. Specifically, they found a 500 gold piece gem, which is important for Squid's wizard, who has a custom-made subclass. EC, or Empty Caverns, is a soul thief. He basically Skyrim style rips the soul out of people's dead bodies. There's some rules behind it. It's kind of, we're just kind of now testing it. So it's just, I came up with it on the fly, felt kind of right, felt like, trying to balance it being powerful with, hard to use, especially at lower levels. So we're kind of seeing how it goes. But basically he needs to use 500 gold piece gems, so a gem worth 500 gold pieces, to cast this spell and imbue this stone with the soul of a person. One of the hooks that he has to continue adventuring in the party is that the person who enslaved him took away one of his ancient soul gems, there's basically two kinds. There's a regular soul gem, and then there's the ancient soul gem, which has basically like an ancient dragon soul in it. Maybe like an elf who's lived to 1,000 years and is very powerful. Basically, it corresponds to level as well as age. So it's supposed to be level 15 bosses would be the kind of people who would be an ancient soul gem. And later on, he can do some really powerful stuff with it, so it's worth going after if he can. So he found that, and he was very excited. He also found a spell scroll that he can write into his wizard book. They found some other stuff, nothing too crazy. They learned about how to identify items. Again, this is kind of a newer party. None of us have played D&D. Most of us have never played D&D before, so it's kind of a learning experience on how everything works. So they identified some potions. They identified the spell scroll, and did some more exploring. They did find the storeroom of Gladwin Grieger. I forgot that the thing that I forgot was that I wanted to have Gladwin be hiding somewhere in the grotto, but I forgot to include it. So they kind of were exploring. They found his secret tunnel leading from his rooms to his warehouse where he keeps all his goods, and I wanted him to be in there, with maybe one or two higher level of NPCs that would have been living, or would have been in the grotto during this revolt, and he could have been like, hey, I will pay you whatever you want, but come with me. And there could have been a cool role play encounter there, maybe a combat encounter. That would have been interesting, but I completely forgot about it. I was worried about all the other slave factions and getting what they were doing right. So I just totally dropped the ball on that one until they left, and I was like, oh, what happened to Gladwin? So he might be a recurring villain that pops up later in the campaign. Other than that, as they tried to leave, they were deciding what to do with their slaves, or not their slaves, but their hostages. They had 4 hostages, including the daughter of Gladwin, Gertrude Grieger. Squid was really intent on killing one and taking their soul. They interrogated one, got a little bit of information, just basically confirming what they had already known about kind of where they were, what they're doing, why that guy was there. Him they let go. They brought 2 of the women with them, and I don't remember what they did with Gertrude. Maybe they brought her as well. Just kind of deciding, to play it by ear. Malphasette, I had her try to kill one, failed because she's Malphasette. But she tried to kill one, failed. They just kind of talked her down. She wasn't really set on it. Just kind of felt like, hey, let's do it. They wanted us to die, and let's kill them. But they were basically like, the party was basically like, hey, let's just bring them with us, and we'll decide later. And basically, it was like, we're going to turn them over to the guards, or we're going to ransom them, one or the other. And it didn't really come up until they got to town, which was uneventful. They traveled with the human faction. The goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs all went their separate ways. And yeah, they got to town. The town marked on a map, which they found. They did find a map, which was basically like, you are here. And there was a note that basically said, I think it was a note. They found a map and a note. Between the 2 of them, they knew where they were. They knew where the closest town was. And also a keep, where they were like, hey, there's some weird howling coming from over there. And that was pretty close by to the town as well. And that was the first little hook for the quest that was ready for that town. So they get there, they bring all the people, some guards show up because they've got this caravan of like 20 people, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? And these are dwarves, so Bromdir's like, yes, I'm in my element, and greets them and talks to them and is dwarf-like, and it was fun. And basically it was like, here's some people, they enslaved us. And the guards believed them and took them at their word, and was like, all right, well, we'll take them away, and did. And then the humans left. They went for the tavern that the guards suggested. Nice, clean tavern, good food. And they parted their ways. The party went to a shop, sold some items, met the dwarf shopkeeper, and then went to the tavern. Malphasette kind of split off at this point. She went with the humans, with the human faction. I keep calling them humans. They're not all humans. Some are elves, some are dwarves, some are gnomes. So the players went to the tavern and just kind of relaxed. Cal was really excited to be role-playing a dwarf in the tavern. He had him order ale. Brav had his Cupid, his paladin, order a fish. And this was big. It was very expensive because they were inland. There's no ports nearby. There's really no fishing to speak of. So I figured it would have to be like magically transported or like kept on ice. Um, something that would have required a lot of logistical support. So it's not just like, hey, we slaughtered a pig over at the butcher shop around the corner, or like chickens or whatever. So he was paying gold for these fish, which the players have. They're not poor at this point. They looted the grotto for all it was worth. I think they only missed, one or two things and I don't even know if there were any coins there. So they're doing well off so far. They did sell most of the stuff that they had acquired too. Got a little bit of gold that way. They didn't try and sell the spyglass yet, which I thought was neat. They they probably saw these videos and were like, let's wait for now. While they were there, they were just kind of role playing and having a good time as their characters, just kind of falling more into the roles of each character. I had them play. I think they played cards, which I basically did as like a roll off of some kind. They had some kind of modifier to it. I can't remember what. I think it was Malphasette who was playing with them, and she was trying to cheat and she got caught. And they were just like, it's fine, whatever. Which I thought was good because I like Malphasette as a character and I want her to keep coming in. And she's the one who introduced them primarily to this quest in the town. The town is Eaddham. Eaddham. And it's a dwarf town. There's a resident baron who resides in a small keep in the center of town. And her town has almost come under siege. Like, there have been kids that go missing. There have been merchant shipments that have been missed. And they're not sure what's going on. And they want to hire somebody to find out. Malphasette is the first one to be like, hey, I have a job, and here's what it is. You guys can join me if you want. And they agree because it sounds interesting. And it turns out that one of the plot hooks that I had kind of just mentioned was the one that Squid, who plays the evil wizard in the party, was like, that's the one. We got to help. We're doing it. We got to help. Which was that the young man, who one specific young man has gone missing, which was Glenn Cartwright, who I did not have a name for. He was literally just the Cartwright boy, the young man, the son of the man who makes the carts in town. And they wanted to know more about him, so he's Glenn Cartwright. And he went out hunting. Some other dwarven youth went missing as well, but they didn't seem that concerned about them. They were more of like like statistics. There's more happening than just this young man. But they went specifically for this young man who was the last one to go missing. So Malphasette agrees to meet with them in the morning, and they go to bed. They wake up. She's gone. She's a tricky one. So they're not sure exactly what happened. Somebody told them that Malphasette left early in the morning, went off in some direction, and that's all they knew. But they also told them that all the information that he knew, all about all these kids, whose parents they were, where the merchant shipments were going, and they basically latched on to Glenn Cartwright. They went to talk to his father. He gave them some information about, where he likes to hunt, about a pond with a scarecrow near it. It's off in that direction. And so they set out and went to find him, and they found the location, and I think they found tracks or something like that. I can't remember what exactly it was, but they kept looking, they kept going, and they eventually found him, and they found some giant toads. This was actually a random encounter that I had planned in case things were getting a little stale. I was going to throw 9 giant toads at them. I just rolled it randomly. I think it was from Xanthar's Guide to Everything. And yeah, so I just threw Glenn in the middle of it, and it was a matter of, hey, save Glenn, and you're good. And they did, but it was very close, which was good. The tension was high, I think. It was kind of a sloggy fight because it was just 9 of the same monster. Um, but there were definite moments where it could have gone either way. Glenn could have died. He got swallowed by a toad at one point and only just barely got saved. Um, I think Cupid got swallowed as well because he's kind of the hapless guy in the party. Just can't seem to make it out of a fight unscathed. But yeah, it went well. They succeeded. They killed, I think, 6 of the 9 toads, and once they killed the 4th or 5th one, I was just like, yeah, they're gonna book it out of here. They can't really get to Glenn. These new, food sources are fighting back, and they're killing them. So I figured they'd probably just bounce, literally. So the primary thing I took out of that was I want to make future fights more interesting. Um, Fights for up until now have kind of been, here's the enemy, here's you guys, what happens? And I want to work more environmental stuff into it. The dungeon they're going into now is not going to offer that, but I have some plans. I have another one that's pretty much built, and I think I can add a couple of like mystical effects that can kind of spice the combat up a little bit. They rescued Glenn, and they're kind of looking him over. They healed him immediately. Brav used his lay on hands, and then they decided to see, to talk to him, see what happened. He says that he was held captive by werewolves in this keep, and that he managed to escape just barely. They look him over for wounds, but they've already healed him, so they're not exactly sure what happened. And now they're worried that he might be a werewolf. I can't tell you if he's a werewolf yet because spoilers, but they'll probably find out for sure next session, one way or the other. I do have something planned for that. But Squid is very dedicated to keeping this kid alive, getting him healed. So when they went back with Glenn, talked to the Baroness, and they basically told them everything. Said he is a werewolf, or he might be a werewolf. There are werewolves around. That's your problem. We will solve it for you tomorrow. And the Baroness was basically like, well, we're going to kill him because he might be a werewolf. So they held back that one piece of information that Glenn might be a werewolf because he was held captive by werewolves, and they're not entirely sure if he was bitten or not. So most of the party left. Squid, or EC, stayed behind with Glenn and said, hey, look, he might be a werewolf. Full disclosure. And they were like, all right, well, he's going to die. And he managed to talk them into just kind of keeping him in his custody. They'll stay with them. If, he does turn or anything like that, they can put a stop to it. But if he is innocent, if he's not bitten, if he's not, infected, then, his life will continue and he won't be punished for, this tragedy that's befallen him. Squid's backstory is, that the whole reason that he's so evil is because he's trying to rescue his daughter. He's basically, everything he's doing is to cast true resurrection and resurrect his young daughter. So the fact that this young boy, the son of a father, was in trouble, that was like, oh, okay, yeah, I got to do this. So he's very much in this altruistic stage. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens going forward. I can't wait for the next session to kind of spring stuff on them. Maybe he's evil, maybe he's not. Maybe he's a werewolf, maybe he's not. Maybe he'll have to fight him. Maybe you can try and find another way. So it'll be interesting, and there's going to be a little tension in the party, maybe, and outside of the party. And but for the short term, the Baroness agreed that she would write to the capital, or to at least to the duchy capital at Harpeth Castle, and ask for a cleric to come out, someone who might be able to cast powerful healing on them, remove curse, greater restoration, something like that. And that was basically the session. There was a lot of role play. It wasn't a lot of moving the story forward, except for getting actually outside of the grotto, which they had basically done in the last session. we were missing clicks, so I think there was definitely not a lot of impetus to push the story forward, to try and really take on this dungeon, um, which was good. So, you know, we had a nice light session, a lot of role play. There was a one encounter, one combat encounter at least, and a bunch of, you know, interacting with the city, finding out a little bit about how the politics of the land works, by interacting with, you know, the guard captain, the baroness, some of the townspeople, and I think as they get into larger and larger civilized areas, it'll make a little more sense, kind of why the baroness is doing what she's doing, and just going forward, it'll be really interesting. So the one thing for me is that I really want to get combat more interesting. I like to play a very tactical game. I like it when my characters or my player characters are thinking kind of outside the box and solving problems that are not, you know, just running with sword. You know, like anything from like basically anything. Anytime they're like, I want to do this and I hadn't thought of that, I love it. You know, if they, you know, cast a spell and bypass something, fantastic. If they, you know, talk their way past, you know, some sentries, some guards, stealth past, use stealth to get closer, you know, all of that, I love it. So I want to try and build in more ways that they can do that, instead of just like, you're here, they're there, what are you doing? Because that feels boring and lame and like a slog, and I want, even if the combat is long, I want it to be interesting and fun, and I want them to be thinking tactically about how they can get past it. You know, not necessarily just wipe them out, which is valid, but I want to have that option of like, there's other stuff we could do. So that's my mission for next time. I'll let you know how it goes. We might play tomorrow. We might play next week. It's up in the air. We've been having so much fun that while originally we were planning on doing it every 2 weeks, when we can do it every week, we're going to try to. But there's a lot of time zones to consider. There's a lot of people's schedules to consider. So the videos will come out when they come out, and the sessions will be run when they get run. You can always follow me on Twitter if you want to ask me anything about this, anything about, I don't know, the custom class, whatever you want. I'm there. I'm on Discord, and I love to chat with you. I love to talk with you. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Happy gaming.